everyone, and welcome to the 9th game of our Rogue Arena run here. It's going to be against the Paladin, and it's going to be quite an interesting game. It's a pretty long one, lots of decisions to be made, so a lot of things to analyze. Okie dokie. So straight up from the mulligan it's pretty interesting, because you have a 2-drop, a 3-drop. It's very tempting to keep Dark Iron Dwarf here. Ogre Ninja's going back no matter what. But because we have 2 backstabs and two ringleaders in our deck, I think it's better to just keep the Barber, keep the Crusader, and then look for, you know, either a backstab or a ringleader. Having 2 of each makes it fairly likely that we'll get 1 in the opening hand if we throw an additional 2 cards away. And yep, we're getting a backstab. So, you know, even though Dwarf is great if you're on the board, it's fine to just have this. Okay, so our opponent straight away starts with a secret here. The 2 most common secrets are the Noble Sacrifice and Avenge, or, you know, the Get Down, as we like to call it, for the Noble Sacrifice. So we're going to coin out a dagger here no matter what, because we have an Auto Barber on turn 2, which is really good if our opponent has a 2 health minion. But it just doesn't seem, you know, fail-proof, because of, it could be Get Down, right? So if we use our face into his minion next turn, and it is a Noble Sacrifice, you can see how that's pretty annoying. So we're gonna go ahead and check for the secret turn 1. It's fairly likely not Noble Sacrifice, but just in case it is, you know, it's okay to check. So, you know, we checked for the secret and we have fairly good intelligence now. It is an Avenge indeed. Our opponent's going to play fairly slow here by just hero powering. I believe that could be him playing around the Auto Barber. You know, maybe he has a 2 health minion and he's like, you're not getting my minion, you're gonna use my dagger on the 1-1, you're gonna use your dagger on the 1-1 anyway. So dagger on the 1-1 happens no matter what. Whether we're gonna Barber or not, that makes no difference. And I think because we have 2 Auto Barbers in the hand and a backstab, we could be pretty greedy here and just re-dagger here. I think that just a naked Barber isn't going to do that much for us, especially because you have backstab, you have a great turn 3 play, a great turn 4 play, and you always look at it like this. A rogue hero power counters 2 paladin hero powers. So even though paladin is the strongest class in the arena meta right now, I think rogue has a fairly good chance against paladin just because of, you know, the way how the hero power counters his hero power nicely and, you know, can remove divine shields, etc, etc. So we see that our opponent played a spider tank. There's 2 ways to approach this. You can play your Scarlet Crusader here and pass. That way he'll develop his 4-drop and we'll probably, you know, have, you know, the Scarlet Crusader on the board, and then we can play on curve next turn. But because he has that Avenge and we don't really want to deal with the Avenge just yet, it seems better to just play the Goblin Auto Barber, backstab his Spider Tank, and then use our face into the Spider Tank, leaving his board nice and clean. Excuse me, he gets no option to Kings, he gets no option to give a Divine Shield. That's the number 1 priority against the Paladin. Keep the board nice and clean, don't give him any way to improve his minions with Kings or Divine Shield, or even a Blessing of Wisdom, getting him more cards. So this is why Rogue is fairly decent against Paladin. Rogues are the king of board in the early game. You know, backstab allows you to get onto the board. We don't have as much removal against Mage, but we have cheap removal, which allows us to put removal down and minions, and then the minions act as removal as well, because, you know, just trading a minion, like now for instance. Once again, why Barber is so friggin' amazing. We're gonna see our 2-drop trade into his 4-drop, which is pretty silly. I mean, you have to say that yes, you're also using our hero power, but it's 1 charge of a dagger, so we could classify that as 1 mana, correct? You know, seeing as 2 mana for a hero power, this is 1 charge. So using 1 charge of our hero power plus a 2-drop, that is a 3 mana trade for a 4 mana trade. That is still pretty decent, especially this early in the game if you can be up a mana in a trade. You know, just having our 2-drop be a dagger and then later on making up for that is just sweet. So we're trading here no matter what. Gotta keep his board clear of the Avenge, and then you can choose whether you're going to dagger Barber again, you're just gonna Shredder. You could even Barber Ringleader, but that's really vulnerable to Consecration, so to me it makes just way more sense to kill his minion, see which spare part you get, and then play the Shredder. Checking which spare part you get is part of that get the random element out of the way first, although no spare part here would change our mind. It's just a good habit to have, you know. Sometimes when you do trades and you kill the Yeti last and you're like, oh, I just got the +1 damage power part, that would have come really in handy, I wouldn't have had to sack my big minion now. So he has a bomb lobber here. He's essentially hoping that whatever we get is crap, but we get a 3 and 2. So our 3 and 2 can trade, so that's again 1 mana advantage. Our 4 drop is going to trade with his 5 drop, that's pretty good. And this way we are slowly but surely creeping ahead of the Paladin on the board by making these efficient mana trades, because if you keep doing, you know, good trades in terms of mana, you're bound to get ahead on the board. You know, our 2 drop killed this, sorry, our 3 mana investment killed his 4 mana investment. Our 4 mana investment killed his 5 mana investment, and that is essentially what ends up like this, because you have to look at it like this. Our turn 5 ends with 3-1, 2-2, 2-1 on the board. His turn 5 ended with a 3-3 in our guy. So like when you look at the balance of things at the end of turn 5, you know, both players have had their turn 5. Our turn 5, we have 7 more power on the board than the Paladin. And that is not just, you know, because, you know, we got lucky or whatever. That is because that's systematic good use of our mana, being able to trade up, use low amounts of mana to kill higher amounts of mana, you know, and then just mana is mana in the early game. Whether it's mana going towards hero power or mana going towards a creature, just look at it as just straight up a mana investment. That's why some creatures are better than others. You know, a Thrallmar Farseer costs 3 mana, but you're putting a 2-3 on the board, whereas a Spider Tank also costs 3 mana, and you're putting a 3-4 on the board, which is gonna trade up better, you know, get you more likely ahead on the board. And you know, we just have the Paladin where we want him right now. We have the board, we can keep killing his minions. He can't really use any of his class cards too efficiently. Even Consecration, probably the best one here, doesn't do that much. It kills a 2-drop and removes the shield of a 3-drop, so yeah, perfect positioning against the Paladin for this time of the game. So we'll see what his reply is. Shredder and a hero power. Okay, so this is the first time that he's going to be able to trigger his Avenge. If we clear his minions, that is. But seeing as we have a fairly good board for it, I don't mind it. We can just use our Divine Shield into his Shredder, see what he gets. His Recruit will be buffed, and then we could either play the Shredder, Whirling Blades, one of our guys to trade in, and then put our Priestess down. This is an option, but we first have to see what comes out of the Shredder, and then we maybe change our mind. Okay, so Avenge, Shocker, we didn't know that, didn't see it coming at all. We go 4-3 and a 2-1. Now because of this 2 and 1, it's probably better to just dagger up, put the Shredder down, put our face into the Owl and our 2 minions into the 4 and 3. It's not a glorious play or anything, but it's not that bad. In the end, we are trading in our 2 mana versus his 2 mana. You know, sorry, his 3 mana. He used 2 mana for his hero power, and then another mana for his Avenge. So we only spent 2 mana on the Ringleader, and then, you know, the 2 mana of the hero power to kill the Owl, which is technically only 1 mana because we're only using half. So far so good. Once again, really solid board lead, and you can see that the board lead is just staying quasi the same. Although we have 7 power now, the Shredder is obviously better than the 4 power from the Defias Ringleader, seeing as the Shredder represents 4 mana and the Defias only represented 2 mana. So compared to the last board state, I'd say that we're about 1.5 mana up. I'm gonna discount a half a mana because she lost her shield, but so far still very good spot for us. Okay, so it's the first time he's really playing into the Betrayal. Not that it's that poorly played, but he should have used his hero power first and then put his Chow on the other side. Because he now messed that up, we can take advantage. We can just Betrayal the Zombie Chow. That way we can put our Scarlet Crusader into the Questing Adventurer, put our Shredder into the Zombie Chow for full clear. The Shredder will survive, and we can just put down, say, I think Amani, Priestess, and Redagger. We'll see if my memory serves me right. I'm just going off the plays that I would do now myself. It seems to make most sense. Yeah, there we go, the Betrayal comes out, trade, hits. And that way our dagger isn't even tied up. Suppose we also hit 3 dagger. It's no use to play the Barber now. Playing Barber now plays a little bit too much into Consecration. So yeah, here we go. Hit 3 dagger. Priestess and Amani Berserker, playing nicely around the mind control tech. Let's see if we position correctly. No, a small positioning error. Would have probably liked the Shredder in the middle. This is one of these things that sometimes happens when you are coaching a student. These small mechanical errors that are really no problem. No, it's all for the learning process, but once again, if this Shredder were to drop a Flame Tongue or a Dire Wolf, that'd be pretty problematic, that we only buff up one creature. So he enraged our Amani, but killed our Priestess, so that's pretty decent for him. Okay, so Solemn Vigil for 4, nothing crazy there. Arcane Intellect with attacks on it. This is a pretty interesting board. We could use our Amani into one guy, and then Barber and Face into the Bomber. However, I feel like preserving this 5 and 3 body, you know, keeping it as a 5 and 3 to play around Consecrate, is really not that bad. Now you could argue that keeping the Shredder at 1 HP also plays around Consecrate, because whatever comes out of the Shredder could die to a Consecration. I think in the end we're gonna go with the play that deals an extra 5 phase, because you could hit, so it saves us 2 phase damage, it deals 1 extra damage to his phase. Is that a great argument? Probably not, and when I look at the play, I can't say that I'm 100% satisfied that we sacked the Shredder. You know, I feel like it could go either way, because if you put the Barber down and your Shredder is a 3-2, that's also pretty risky. Now we got a 3 health minion out of the Shredder, which in hindsight makes this a better move, but it was a risky move, you know, because that Shredder might as well drop a 2 health minion, which means that you'll now have a 5-3, a 3-2, and a 1 and 3, which means, no, sorry, if let's say this is a River Croc, let's say this is a Bloodfen Raptor, he consecrates, we keep a 5 and 1, whereas if you had Shredder and hit the Amani in, you could have had a slightly bigger creature, health-wise that is. So these are minimalistic things, of course, but you know, being one of the more high-level players, these are the things that interest me, you know, like where can I get that little extra % of efficiency. But he plays Follow the Rules, you know, not a bad card for him, not a super bad card for us. You know, you'd much rather that hit your big Amani than it hit your Ogre Ninja, for instance. So okay, so fairly easy board clear here. We can use our Face and the Amani on one guy, our Barber and the other guy, our Swordsmith on the 1 and 1, and then just develop Ogre Ninja and the Zombie Chow. Keeps playing around the mind control tech. The reason why we're going to sacrifice the Amani Berserker rather than the Swordsmith is because the Swordsmith is still having an active effect, whereas the Amani is already enraged, so it won't get more damage, I think. Yeah, it should not work like that. So we'll see here. I'm probably just explaining it to the student right now, which plays make the most sense. Right, just make sure I'm not making a mistake with the Amani. No, we didn't see it get extra damage. So the Amani would need to get healed and then hit again. That's how it could get bigger. And now we play the Chow because it is consecration proof. As you see, it's a recurring theme in all of my games. Whenever a class has an AoE, it's something you need to keep in mind. You know, Hellfire, Consecration, Holy Nova, Flame Strike, all these things you somewhat want to play around. Of course, the more uncommon board clears like Shadow Flame, Blade Flurry are harder to play around, but you know, if you are far enough ahead, you can of course try it. Our opponent's going for a power play here, putting a Divine Shield on a 6-4. We could use our Smith to knock it off, but we are top decking pretty well. We can now use our Face into the 2 and 2, our 1 and 2 into the 1 and 1, and then our sabotage his minion away. We don't want to use our Zombie Chow on either of the minions, simply because, you know, Consecration is a thing. We don't want to put our minions on 2 health if we can avoid it. Also, we could play the Rocketeer here, but once again, it's a 2 health minion. We don't really want to commit it to the board just yet. It'd be sad if she dies to a Hammer of Wrath or a Consecration or even a Stormpike Commando. I mean, the board is ours. We are pressuring his life total. There's no need to go ham here. We can just dagger up and pass. I was doing some calculations here to see if we had 2-turn lethal in case the Ogre missed if we went for Rocketeer now. He would go to 11, and next turn we have 8, 10, 11 damage. But I deemed it not necessary in the end, just because of Consecration. Don't really want to risk the game on that. So we'll see what he has here. True Silver. Ah yes, he hits the Ogre, so telegraphs that he does have the Consecration. The fact that he aimed at the Ogre for just a split second tells me that he has Consecration. So another good piece of advice is, unless you are 100% sure you are making the play, don't aim at stuff. Don't do it, because if he had ended up hitting the Zombie Chow in the end, saying, "I'm gonna slow roll this Consecration, I'm gonna keep it for another turn, try to get more value," I will know that you have that Consecration, because there is no reason for you to aim at my Ogre with your weapon unless you have 2 damage to back it up, and 2 damage in a Paladin deck, we know what time it is then, we know Consecration is coming out. So here we go, hits the Ogre, consecrates here, takes out the Swordsmith, takes out the Ogre, that's fine. Played around it the entire game and it's paying off. Never gave him a good Consecration. I mean, he had to take 6 to the face here to do it. And I feel now it's the perfect time to unleash the Rocketeer. He's down to 1 card, he's used his removal. We want to start pressuring his life total, because we do have Zombie Chow on the board. We don't want to let the game spiral out of control here. So if the Chow goes 4 face, he goes to 8. If then the Rocketeer goes to his face, he goes to 3. Meaning he can still hit the Chow, because he'll heal first. They go to 5, put his face into the Zombie Chow, he'll go to 1 for a second, and then back it up to 6 after the heal. But 6 is still not enough to save him out of this situation, of course. So that's why we're opting to deal the damage of the Rocketeer now. We just don't want him to draw, let's say if I don't hit with the Rocketeer here and he draws a Force Tank Max, he has another turn to live. I don't really want to prolong the game here, because we still have a Force Tank, but if we don't draw it, then, you know, this is exactly the point that I explained in the draft for the top decking scenarios where Force Tank is so good. Drawing a Force Tank here instead of Rocketeer would have been a bit more solid, but looks like he doesn't have anything. He can't survive the next turn. GG Bobplate for our 9th game. So hey guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you for game number 10.